always wanted to do that.
All right, Nancy Pelosi, hello.
No, Ron Clark. So, it being 6 o'clock, I'll call to order the meeting of the Carver Redevelopment Authority on May 20th at 6 p.m. I'll introduce the board. To my far left is Pat Maher, Paul Costas, Joanna Layton, and Savory Moore. And I'm Sharon Clark, the chair. I'd like to thank everyone for showing up today. Before I start what is going to be a long series of meetings, I want to make just a couple of opening remarks. This is going to be the first in a series of a lot of meetings concerning the URP. And first I'll explain that you're going to hear URP and MOU a lot. URP is Urban Renewal Project. MOU is the Memorandum of Understanding that the Carver Redevelopment Authority has with the preferred developer. That's this. If anyone needs to see it, it's on the website. So you hear us use those words a lot. But this series of hearings, which will run through the summer at least, is going to include virtually every department and board in town. The RDA will be asking for vital input and evaluations and suggestions about how to make this project the best project that it can be and beneficial to the town for many years. Excuse me. It's a project that's actually been in the works for 5 years. Some of you may be just hearing about it for the first time. But it's hopefully coming to a good partnership that will create a strong and much needed revenue stream, as well as jobs and additional commerce to the town of Carver. When I think about restaurants and the dollar store and gas stations and, oh heavens, Dunkin' Donuts may need another drive-through with the people that may be employed in our town. So this is a big project for a little town. And there's going to be questions and concerns, and we will try to get the answers as best we can. Sometimes people will like them, sometimes they won't. But I absolutely guarantee that you will be heard. There will be public hearings, there'll be time for questions and answers, and you will be heard. One of the driving points in this project is that it's taking a very large parcel of industrial wasteland before, not so much now, and trying to turn it into something that will be very productive for the town. 70% of our budget goes to the school department. So that doesn't leave a lot to run the rest of the town. A revenue stream such as this, whatever it comes out to be, that could mean additional staffing where we didn't have money for that before. That could mean, we can fix the AC in the library without putting it on the 5-year plan. We could have more services for our seniors without having to look for the money. We can do open space, look at conservation land. It opens some doors, but it comes at a cost. It comes at the cost of putting something on the outskirts of town in the industrial sections, a place where it was designed to be over 5 years ago. So developing a former Superfund with the limitations that the town has with sewer and water into something beneficial is well worth exploring and exploring correctly, which is why this is going to take a while. It's going to take up our whole summer. The one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read the mission statement that comes out of the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, what came from the RDA at the time with the preferred developer. This is the agreement they came to. The town of Carver seeks to capitalize on the strategic location of this particular area of North Carver for long-term economic development purposes. The town envisions the private redevelopment of the area for modern, attractive, and sustainable facilities for warehousing and distribution, light manufacturing, and public uses, as well as future commercial and retail development. The town of Carver envisions the comprehensive redevelopment of a 301.4 acre site, which is the project area, which comprises of North Carver, URP, the Urban Redevelopment Project, as a thriving community asset generating both property tax and revenue and much needed employment opportunities for area residents. That was our mission statement when these two groups came together. I think only Joanna was on the board at the time. But we are charged with carrying that out. Tonight we have the preferred developer who's going to give us an update. Due to COVID-19, as you all know, we weren't meeting, but that doesn't mean a lot wasn't happening. So I'm going to yield the floor to, who's going to speak? Bob?
Sure, I'll start. Thank you, and appreciate that recap.
He's gonna have to sit there. He's gotta be in the mic. He's gotta be in that mic.
Right, just run the mic on the table over there. You sit in that chair.
Could you sit in that chair, please?
Thank you. Bob Delholm, Route 44 Development Principal. This has been a long process. I've been affiliated with the site that is now encompassed in the North Carver Urban Renewal Plan probably since 2004, and remember the 2006 and then 2008 economic development plan put in by FXM Associates. And so while we've had the redeveloper or the developer agreement in place since 2016, this is a decades-long effort that's been undertaken by the town of Carver and then ultimately led to the Redevelopment Authority collaborating with Route 44 Development to draft the North Carver Urban Renewal Plan and then enter into the preferred developer agreement. Since 2016, much has been done, and it's been a really functional and positive collaborative effort between Route 44 Development and the RDA, and that's been very much appreciated. In that time, not only have we acquired, fortunately, eminent domain that had been sort of a polarizing issue or component of the urban renewal plan, and perhaps rightfully so, never had to be utilized, and we were able to acquire 16 parcels that now total the full footprint. And we're very proud of the track record and the relationships that were built with each of the sellers. And in each instance, it was a successful transaction for the seller, and we're really proud of that. So since 2016, we've assembled the full urban renewal footprint. We've been able to achieve a final MEPA certificate, which is essentially the initial master permit that's required, and that was achieved for just under 1.8 million square feet of distribution center, warehousing, logistics, light manufacturing. We've worked with the town to receive funding for the new Montello entrance into the site. We've worked closely with multiple engineering and design firms to develop credible, sustainable, long-term solutions to the lack of infrastructure that service the North Carver footprint. We've worked diligently to resolve very complicated environmental liabilities and continue to advance that effort today. And this evening, we're really proud for the second time to be able to introduce the Hillwood team. This has been a long-desired outcome to be in a position where the challenges that had impeded economic investment in that North Carver footprint have now been addressed and outlined, or at least the resolutions to them have been, to the extent that we have the opportunity collectively to have a firm such as Hillwood, who has tremendous experience, is very capable, and has partnered with many towns and communities that have many of the same issues and concerns that the town of Carver has. And so this evening, I'm certainly proud of the work that we've done together. And I'm also proud to be able to introduce to you the Hillwood team and then be able to continue the dialogue and answer as many of the questions as we can, but certainly provide you an update in terms of where we are in terms of the current status of the project. So maybe with that, I'll turn it over to Gary Frederick, who you've met previously, to introduce himself and his team.
Thanks, Bob. Good evening, and thanks for inviting us in. And we're awfully glad to be here. Carver's a community that feels like it has done, I'm just looking at it from the outside, it feels like you have really invested a lot of time and energy to put together the redevelopment plan with an eye towards the future. And we're impressed by that. We're impressed by the work that Route 44 has done. The process of assembling this many parcels is daunting, and I'm sure there's some stories that Bob and George could tell about that process, but it takes a lot of work to get to where you are today, and it looks inviting to us because the process has been started in a thoughtful and professional way, and so we are in the business of acquiring land that has this potential, and it takes, as you mentioned in your opening remarks, a lot of work to get to the point where the goals are realized, when the tax payments are coming in and when people are coming in and clocking into work and taking home paychecks. It's a long process, and we've done it many, many times. I've been with Hillwood 22 years. Mac is with us. He's been with me 14 years, I believe, and Nate's been with us about 2 months. We have I think really two strong players here that Nate came to us from Langen Engineering with many years of experience on the civil engineering side of this. So I just wanted to set the stage a little bit of what it is that has brought us to town, is that this looks like an opportunity where the stage is set to allow us to move forward with a plan of what we do. And we do this all over the country. I'm the Northeast market leader, so we're working in towns like Carver, all throughout the Northeast quadrant of the country. We're under construction in North Andover, Massachusetts. We're deeply involved in Hudson, New Hampshire. We completed a project a couple years ago in North Haven, Connecticut. So we have a track record in the immediate region. So let me just tell you a little bit about Hillwood. Hillwood is a real estate development company, real estate investment company. It is privately held by the Perot family. and headquartered in Dallas, Texas. So my boss is Ross Perot Jr. Mr. Perot's been gone a couple years, but he was sort of the iconic leader, and we are controlled by the Perot family. And like I said, I've been working for them for 22 years. I'm not here to brag about our track record, but we've got a good track record, and I can encourage you to do your own research on our track record. We think we stack up extremely well against the other firms that do what we do. We have our record stands for itself, and you're not going to Google Hillwood, you're not going to Google Gary Frederick and find a big mess out there somewhere where that left a town in the lurch and didn't. We want to be, all I want you to say about me is Gary did what he said he's going to do. That's all I want to hear. And so that gets me in the door the next time. And so we develop industrial real estate. There's other businesses under the Hillwood banner, but the vast majority of it is industrial real estate, and it's a large scale distribution is what that is. And so everything whether you buy it online or whether you buy it at a store, has to come through a supply chain process. And so where that supply chain activity happens are in these big bulk buildings that say from 100,000 square feet to more than 1 million square feet. And that's where all this stuff comes from. And our business is providing these buildings, this real estate to corporate America, who we all buy this stuff from. So that's our role. We're a developer of this type of real estate. We see sort of a emerging market in New England where traditionally distribution has occurred from farther away, where it wasn't necessary to get it to the customer tomorrow. But people like Amazon have conditioned us that if you do the right series of clicks on your phone, you'll have whatever it is that you desire sometime tomorrow at your house. And so that has necessitated bringing distribution facilities to the greater New England area, where distribution has traditionally been done from places like New Jersey and Pennsylvania have supplied the New England region. You could be here in an 8-hour drive, but you're not going to get it to somebody's doorstep tomorrow from that far away. So it has created an opportunity in this market for this type of facility, not just for, and Amazon, we've done a lot of Amazon work, but we have many other customers than Amazon. So the need to bring inventory up to the consumer is what's putting some tailwind in our business plan for New England, if that makes sense to you. And we think this is a great fit. We take a lot of pride in what we do, but we find it very rewarding when we see the positive impacts on the community. It's kind of easy to talk about the negative impacts. We do have some traffic, and they're not the most beautiful buildings in the world, but they're large masonry structures, but we pay a lot of taxes and we create a lot of jobs, and the stability for the community is rewarding for guys like me to see it when it's all said and done, and when you see hundreds and hundreds of cars in the parking lot, and you know that those people are pulling down a paycheck that's as good or better than they could have gotten elsewhere. That does something for me, And it's probably why I've been doing this for over 20 years. So I'll leave it at that. We also have Bowler Engineering here. These fellows do a lot of this type of work. The civil engineering and planning firm, Matt and John, are here tonight and will do part of their presentation. But they're our hired consultant to do the technical aspect of the site planning and the utilities and the infrastructure and what makes these buildings stand up. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt. I again thank you for giving us the opportunity to come in.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Matt Smith. As Gary said, I'm with Bowler Engineering. I'm a civil engineer, professional engineer. Bowler does site civil design and land consulting, land development consulting, basically from Maine to Miami. We have 30 some odd offices, and my job is I oversee our 4 New England offices and about 100 professionals there that do civil engineering and landscape architecture and planning and survey and all those things to figure out how to make these projects work. Gary comes up with the ideas, and Mac and Nate, and we make sure that it can actually get built. So that's our job. When I'm not overseeing our offices, I spend a lot of time on some of our larger, more complicated projects, working with communities and regulatory authorities and owners to make sure we come up with a project that is a great project for all of the stakeholders involved. So that's our goal, and we're very happy to be here tonight. Gary and I would have to compare our first paychecks because I've been with Bowler for 22 years. And I think next month, John and I will be working together for 20 years. John is my partner. I call him the brains of the operation. And you'll see both of us will be involved with this project through the duration. We won't always both be here, but you'll have familiar faces to help bring this project along. So what I'd like to do tonight is just talk a little bit about what our current plan is for the site, where we are in the process, and then talk about some next steps that we'd like to take and get your feedback on that, and just have a good start to a process that we want to be very transparent and positive. Sound like a good approach?
Yep.
Okay. Great. I handed out some information that it's kind of a takeaway on Hillwood, and then there's 3 different plans that Joanne, I can see you have there. And what I thought would be helpful, the first plan is what we want to do, but the plans that are behind it are plans that you've probably seen before that we have on these boards over to my left and your right. The plan to the right is the original urban renewal plan that had a series of 4 buildings and about 1.8 million square feet. John, would you mind flipping to the next plan? There was then a preferred plan that was arrived on that might be more familiar to you. That was the most recent one, where we had 3 different buildings that again totaled about 1.8 million square feet. You can see on the right side of the plan is the new Montello Street. And as you come in off that, you have a series of 3 buildings varying in size from a couple 100,000 square feet to 1 million square feet. And that's a pretty good layout. But the one that we've arrived upon, again, it's just a different version. We have just 2 buildings. The first one started with 4, and then we went to 3, and now we're looking at a plan with 2 buildings. We don't yet have a specific user in mind, but this is the type of layout that works for a lot of different folks that do this distribution warehouse development. And what's shown on the plan is a 1.2 million square foot facility. You have on both sides of the facility, you've got employee parking on the right and the left side of the building, so folks don't have to walk too far to get to where they're going. And then on both sides of the building, you also have loading for the trucks, and then there's some loading spaces off to the west as well. And then we have a second building that looks small, but it's pretty big still. It's about 570,000 square feet is what we're contemplating. That again has parking and loading distributed around it. The site, as we talked about, it has infrastructure needs as well. So there will be a wastewater treatment plant that's on site. There'll be a water tower that's on site. We'll have stormwater management ponds, which we're showing in green on the site. As you look around the site's essentially ringed by some wetlands. And as Sharon said, we'll be before just about every board, I think, if not every board in town as we go through the process and do things all the right way and in compliance with your regulations. So where we are today, we're in the due diligence phase. These plans look pretty good, but they're kind of pretty pictures right now. And we're doing all the studies that are required to figure out how do we really do this. We've got folks out there doing the on-site surveys so we can figure out where every inch of dirt is on the site. We have geotechnical engineers that are out there poking holes. This has been a fill site for a number of years. We've got to figure out, where do we put the stormwater and how do we do that thoughtfully and in accordance with the regulations. We happen to be in a groundwater protection overlay district, as if it's not the whole town is, most of it is. And we got to make sure that we understand the soil conditions and do that right. The foundation systems will be, we're not splitting the atom, but we've got a lot of stuff in the ground. We got to figure out how to do that right. So we'll spend some time doing that. We're doing hydrogeologic studies to figure out how to put the wastewater disposal fields in the right way and thoughtfully. Environmental studies, as Bob said, there's a lot to figure out there, and we're making good progress on it. We're looking at off-site traffic designs. That was looked at extensively during the MEPA process, and we're looking at how that works and how do we actually implement that, and does that work for us?
I'm sorry.
Sure.
What do you mean by off-site parking? Is that what you said?
Traffic studies.
Oh, off-site.
Yeah, so all the parking would be on site.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but there's a number of off-site improvements that have been contemplated as part of the overall development, including the road along the frontage, but then also some improvements to Route 58 that ultimately have to be done. We need to extend water off-site and figure out how to do that and make the whole system work properly. Gas, utilities, electric utilities, we got to work with the utility companies to extend those to site. So we're doing all those things, and we're in a due diligence phase to figure out if what the town and what Bob have been trying to accomplish, if it really is viable and that this makes sense. And that's what our job is, to figure it out and make sure that this is a good investment for Hillwood, and that this is going to be something that really works for the town of Carver. So that's where we currently are, and then we're interested in next steps and what are we going to go do next. And really, this is our first step, is we're here tonight because you've been working on this for a long time, and we want to start this with you. Normally, before we got in front of a board, we typically meet extensively with town staff and talk with planning and fire chief and everyone else to get their feedback on the project. And we're finding answers right now in our investigations, but we're also developing what are the questions that we need to ask and answer. And we're eager to go do that, but we're here first tonight. We need to figure out all the permits that we need to get, whether the zoning that's in place actually works the way it is, or if there are things that we need to do to modify that. And one of the things that we've identified is the height of the buildings was contemplated as 40 feet, which for a long time, that was the right height for industrial facilities. But over the last handful of years, that's changed. They need more height in these facilities. And we have heard that the fire chief has been wisely vocal that he wants to make sure that's safe, and we do too. But we got to get into that process and those conversations.
Can you speak to the change, as to the change in the industry, what's driving it?
Sure.
Is it the norm for buildings that Hillwood is putting up versus, as well as other real estate developments?
Yeah, do you want to?
Okay.
I can do some, but Gary can probably do it better.
Let's ham
We'll
and egg
do
it here.
this.
We'll
Let's do that.
Work together here.
Yes, sir.
Sure, so we talk about the clear height inside the buildings. And so that has evolved, as Matt described, over the last several years. 20 years ago, a 32-foot clear building on the inside, this is below the roof structure, was the industry standard. And so now, on just a conventional bulk building, it's 40 on the inside. So you've got the better part of 10 feet of structure and roof slope over and above the minimum clear height inside the building. So what has really, I'm kind of a logistics guy too, so I can bore you with a lot of this until you tell me to stop, but the ability of operators to take advantage of more clear height has been accomplished through technology, particularly on the lift equipment, the material handling equipment that goes up and down. And so it used to be prohibitively expensive to go 40 feet in the air. Now it's not so prohibitively expensive, and rents have continued to increase. So if you can put, and instead of being 5 pallets high, if you can go 6 pallets high, it's kind of like you're getting that 6th pallet for free because you've got more clear height to store stuff. So we listen to our customers, the distributors and tenants that we have, and that's what the industry has called for over the last 5 to 10 years is more clear height, more capacity for the same square footage of building. It's really not much more complicated than that.
But wouldn't the increased height bring increased issues, and are they essentially worth it? That kind of height, we think immediately of fire prevention, but
Right.
I think of pallets falling down. So the benefits outweigh any issues that they've run into in the industry?
Great question. The fire protection, these buildings have fire sprinklers, pressurized fire sprinklers or fire suppression systems inside them. So the fire suppression system for a 32-foot building would not be adequate for a 40-foot building. And so we have to spend more money for a more robust fire protection system in a taller building, but it's still worth it. Safety is really first and foremost for these operations, whether it's construction or whether it's the actually daily operation of the building. Our customers are not interested in operating in an unsafe manner. So where I said that the technology of these material handling equipment has evolved over the last 10 years or so, it has made it safe.
And so it's more, the higher buildings are more the standard now than
Sure.
nationwide, not just in New England, I assume.
Yes, it's
Okay.
this is an investment business. It's real estate, but it's really an investment business because it takes a lot of money to do these things. And so investors want to invest in the industry standard. They don't want to invest in a building that's functionally obsolete the day they build it. So, and they're, it might cost us a couple bucks a foot in construction costs to go from, say, 36 to 40. But over the last few years, it's become the industry standard and is particularly demanded by the customer and the industry and the investors. I hope that makes sense. I'll,
It does, and the reason I kind of ask is that our zoning for that area is 40 feet. The maximum is 40 feet. It would take a bylaw change at town meeting in order to go to 65. In order for the RDA to consider promoting a 65-foot, a 25-foot zoning change for the height, we have to be absolutely comfortable and certain that if it wasn't you, the next person who might develop the site, I don't want to think that we're restricting anyone from developing the site because we have a not desirable site anymore because of the 40 feet. So as far as like supportive evidence and things like that, I appreciate the fact that you can give anecdotal evidence.
yeah, we can certainly show you statistics of buildings that have been built over the last 10 years and how that the roof, the clear height requirement has increased. There's tons and tons of tangible data on buildings being built across the country in our industry that would bear that out.
I'd appreciate that for our records, just to have something that we can kind of unpack and look at ourselves to feel comfortable that this is now a somewhat outmoded site, and in order to continue to try and market and be attractive for Route 44 as well, is that the industry standards are now more so on 65 feet. So if you can
You bet.
arrange.
We'll make sure we provide that.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Gary's answer was far more interesting. One of the other things, and we're running into this all over the place in New England, where that 40 feet is really the number. These facilities, if you look at the plans that we did, on the bottom side, it's all loading docks. And when you start measuring from a loading dock, the loading dock's actually 4 feet down. And historically, you wouldn't have all that loading. So inherently, the building's 4 feet taller. So even if you were working with those lower heights, you're adding 4 feet. As part of the MEPA process, one of the obligations of the developer is to put solar panels on a good portion of the roof. Therefore, the roof structural section gets even taller to accommodate those things, which are all wise, smart development things. But when you're trying to work within that constraint, it just starts pushing things
So
up.
what you're saying is the additional height of the solar panels, if we were at 44, the top of the solar panel is at 40, but the top of the solar panel is at 40, and your building is starting down here.
Correct, because you have the loading docks, and then you have to make the structure even stronger to hold all of those solar panels, because they weigh quite a bit as well. So there's a lot of pressure to increase that height some, but we'll certainly follow up as discussed.
No, that's an excellent point.
Okay. So I was basically about to say, so we have some steps that we want to take, but you've been looking at this for a long time, and I think it would be appropriate to hear some questions you may have for us or some thoughts that you have on our next steps, and we can work together on what that might be.
Before I yield to the rest of the board, when you say you're doing your due diligence, is that we're going to take the summer? Do you have a timeline yourself?
We do. We have a schedule that I don't have right in front of me, but we're, it's much of the summer that we'll be taking, but we're not just going to go back to our nerd caves and to do all this design work. We're going to be working on it, figuring things out. Then we need to speak with the town. You're going to help us through that due diligence process, ideally. And then we'd intend to pull together plans for, the filings. We'd like to actually meet with your boards informally to talk about what we're thinking and how we're going to approach the design, so that when we do come in with the formal designs, we're nodding already. And that's probably, we'd like to have those conversations over the summer while we're still going through those diligence efforts.
And when you get to your final design, I'm not going to pick you out for a day, hour, time.
Sure.
How long?
How long until we have that?
Yeah, how long?
It's probably, Nate's going to have a faster answer than the one I want to give, but it's late summer. Yeah, and we have to go through the process with how the height getting
That's
changed, which is in the fall.
Our town meeting is in the fall. But in order for the number of committees and boards that I discussed to evaluate what their concerns are, their needs are, especially in police and fire,
Yep.
water, the North Carver Water District, then they need to have something more than this. So I think I was asking you, when do you get a picture of this?
We can have a picture of this or something like this for some forthcoming, even those informal meetings. Yeah, to start talking about it with some more specificity.
Okay, I think, because there's certain boards that need
Absolutely.
far more specifics than, where the catch basins are.
Yeah.
I'm gonna yield to Savory. Do you wanna give any initial, and then I'm gonna ask anyone else who wants to speak to address and have any questions.
Okay, hold on a second, I'm just writing something else down. I see on your plan you do have 40 feet as your height, but your plan is to be higher. Would you, I know that the bylaw that's being proposed for the fall is to go to 65. Is that the height that you need? Or is that just the next number in this progression of numbers?
It's a little bit of it's a little bit arbitrary, to be honest with you. We've got to pick a number of where we think the industry's going and where we want to be in order to compete with other properties in the market. But we think 65 is going to be adequate here. We're building a building in North Andover that's over 100, but we don't plan to do that here. But we think 65 will allow us to be competitive.
All right, one of the reasons that I asked that question is that I was on the town master plan committee about 5 years ago, and the one thing that we kept hearing from all the people who had a voice in the master plan of Carver is rural character, maintaining the rural character of this town. And the fear, some of the fears that we've heard on this project is the visibility of this large building from places in North Carver, particularly on Route 44 going east and west, between Route 58 and Middleborough, because it's going to be off to your right and it's going to be higher than most trees. And I think that from the standpoint of trying to sell this in the best way, one of the things that you should probably consider doing is some kind of a rendering of what this would look like from a couple of locations around the town, so that people can see that it may be not as bad as they think it's going to be. I think a lot of people here in Carver recently have gone up and down Route 3 between Plymouth and Kingston, and there's a new distribution center there, which I believe is probably 40 feet, maybe even a little less. But it's up on raised ground, and there's nothing around it. So all you see is this huge building. This property is a little bit more in a valley, and I think that works in your favor. But being able to show renderings to people in town saying you're only going to see the top 10 feet of this, I think would be a big help, because a picture says 1,000 words. I think other questions that we've heard from people in the town, and I have to tell you, this really, really helps. It answers a lot of questions that have been asked before about number of trucks on site, number of cars on site, et cetera. I think some of the other questions that people have asked, and you may not know this, not having a tenant, is what kind of materials would be within these buildings. And it's something that maybe there's an overall guess that you can do, but I think people are concerned about chemicals and lithium-ion batteries. And with this many trucks, Is there going to be a fueling facility for the trucks? Is there going to be fuel storage on site for the trucks? Is there going to be a truck maintenance part? I mean, I'm seeing that there are, over 1,000 places for trucks, it looks like, or about 1,000 between loading bays and parking. So that's a lot of, it's a lot of, trucks that they break down. That's a lot of traffic going in and out from trucks. And I just wondered, and other people have mentioned it, that those are the kinds of things that they want to know. And in a sense, from other components such as conservation, and I would think the fire department as well, and probably EMS and police, the footprint of your building is the 1.8 million, your two buildings. But when you add the parking where the trucks are that can also burn, you've got a much larger footprint of combustibles. And that's something that, doesn't need to be addressed, but needs to be, I think, at least mentioned. And I'm sure that you have fire suppression methodologies that you use when you have that many trucks side by side. So that's something that, those are the kinds of questions that I think that people are going to ask. When we go in front of town meeting in October, November, whenever our fall meeting is to request the 65-foot zoning change, all the questions that are going to be asked are not going to be strictly about the zoning changes. These are the questions that people are going to bring up. So the more information we have on the overall project, the easier this is going to be, because we'll be able to give the answers. The last thing people want is someone saying, I don't know the answer right now. And because then that kind of leads to an overall feeling within town meeting that, well, maybe we should delay this and come back in the spring. And that's not what any of us really wants. We know the timing is of the essence here, and I think Sharon has made it pretty clear that we pretty much have one shot at this for now, to get this right. So I think Sharon had already asked about examples of the 65-foot necessity in other buildings. Water, I'm sure you're going to address with the North Carver Water District. I know that the chairman of the Water District is here with us today. Traffic is going to be something else that comes up, and I know the MEPA study was done, and there's quite an increase in traffic. I think that people have a fear that even though you're located on Route 44 and it's east to 3 and west to 495, that it's also south to the Cape, right through the town on 58, which is a one-lane road in each direction. And I don't know if there is a way to instruct drivers how to get from point A to point B through GPS or something. But I think that a concern is the amount of traffic on 58 itself going through the middle of town, especially trucks. And I'm assuming that this would be a 24/7 operation.
Most likely.
So those trucks would not stop at 8 o'clock at night. They'd be going all night long. And there are a lot of, Route 58 is an old road, and there are a lot of homes that are very, very close to the side of the road. And I'm sure these people are not going to want to hear trucks all through the night. It's not something that they're used to. And again, it goes to the rural character of Carver. So these are all questions that are going to come up, and in October when we do this. And these are the things that we need to have answers that make the people in Carver happy with, or at least make them understand the why, if it can't be eliminated, why it's necessary. I think that's all I have as of right now. So those are the things that I've been thinking about. This plan really helps. It answers a lot of the questions. Yeah. Oh, and there's one other thing. I'm sorry. Then I'll let you speak. I see there are an awful lot of employee parking spaces. Is with the automation that you're speaking about, is that a typical amount of jobs that are going to be created? That many cars in a facility that big, even with automation? Because there are 1,200 employee parking spaces.
So
Between the two
it
buildings.
can vary. That, what we're showing is about the right amount for a typical warehouse distribution facility. Depending on what the ultimate end user is, they could have larger requirements, frankly, which we'd have to probably change some building sizes and things like that. But that's for where we are, that's a well, properly parked facility.
So you also have, there's a couple realities about the job count that you can keep in mind. One is that you have a shift change when you're going to have almost twice as many cars on the premises as you have employees, because
Yeah.
300 out, 300 in, or whatever it is. So you've got some overlap there. And the operators want their people to be able to get in and out efficiently. And then there's another consideration that it's very likely that whatever it is that we do here is going to be tied to a typical retail cycle. And we're all conditioned that we do a lot more retail in the November, December part of the year than we do in the rest of the year. And
We don't know how that may change, though.
right, so, but we have to, our customers want to be able to operate at peak to take care of the demands during what we call fourth quarter. And so typically, the employment levels and the activity at the building is seasonal. And so you have to have more for peak season, whether it's both trucks and cars activity. Go like that across the year.
You have to allow for the max.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Would your plan be to build both buildings simultaneously?
We can't say at this point. So just so one thing that you should understand when Matt used the term feasibility. So feasibility in the investor world means, can we make an investment here and make money as opposed to lose money? And how long will it take? So we have to make a lot of guesstimates about what we think it's going to take to compete in the real estate market. And if I built both at the same time, is one going to be empty for a while? And I got to pay my mortgage, I got to pay my bills,
Okay.
pay my taxes, whether it's empty or full. So we are toggling a lot of those switches as we do the analysis and come up with a plan. I would say that what you're seeing on paper is a maxed out plan in terms of square footage. And it's not going to be more square footage. It's more likely than not going to be less. Not like a fourth of that, but it could go down
Yeah,
10%,
I
20%, something like that is probably the sweet spot. But when we want to come to you and come to the agencies and to MEPA and say, here's the worst case scenario from an impact, and know that we've got that covered, and what we probably do in reality is a little bit less than that. So we want to make sure we've got the capacity for what it could be, but generally in the real world, it winds up being something a little bit less. Just
And I think just to tag on that a little bit, this plan is an idea, and it's a feasibility plan right now. It will change. But even if you look at the progression of the plans, well, there was 4 on one, there was 3 on another, there's 2, but we're moving the parts around on the site. And, some of the changes that on a smaller development might seem substantial, like, wow, that building's 100 feet shorter, you'd really have to look at this plan to notice those things. So it will continue to morph, but the impacts that we're assessing are going to be similar, and the infrastructure needs. So we're in a good spot to make all those assessments right now. The other thing, just relative to town meeting and all that, we still need to finalize that analysis on the regulations and work with your staff and folks, there might be some other things. And we've looked at it, we don't think, nothing jumps out at us, but we might need a special permit that we're not sure about. There's going to be some other things that come up in this conversation, and we just need to have those conversations and be forthright with it. But the one that just, the first time we looked at this, we were like, oh yeah, we got to work on the height, so.
Okay, thank you.
And before you're done, a great idea on the visibility study, and that's certainly something that's in our foreground that we will be doing, and it's worth more than 1,000 words. So, good call.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions.
Yeah.
It's
thanks.
very typical of what we hear when we come to town. They want to know what's going on. So
Yeah, we're just
appreciate it.
another town.
No, you're not just another
We are,
town.
we're
but
Carver. I
your-
mean, it's a
your
great town.
questions-
It's a great town, but, you
Your
know,
questions are
we have the same concerns as anyone else.
well stated, and they make sense.
Joanna?
Okay, mine, I don't have a lot like he has, but I have a question for you, and probably DHCD, MIPA study was done, and the infrastructure change, because you're going 40 to 65, and the building construction. Can somebody, Bob or somebody, or whomever, tell me, does MIPA have to be involved here? Because this is an infrastructure change, and it is going from 40 to 65. And would they be involved? I'm hoping, if that's the case, yes. And what could the ramifications be?
Sure.
Are you thinking ahead what it would be? Could you, somebody answer?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as part of this project, we'll go back to MIPA once we figure out what it is that we want to do, and we'll either file, or we'll basically give them the plans and say, here's the current plan, and we'll either file a notice of project change that says, hey, this is nominally different, we think it fits within here, or something is different and we have to reevaluate that impact. Or I think more likely we'll ask for a request for an advisory opinion, where we'll point out these are the things that changed, these are the impacts of that. We think that fits within the overall scope of this. What do you think? And we'll certainly have a formal process with MIPA on that. And it's very customary for projects like this to do that. And they typically aren't that focused on height, but they're focused on a lot of things, and they'll let us know what that is. They're very thorough.
Okay.
Let me add something.
Sure.
Just in full disclosure, is that buildings of this height often have what are called mezzanines inside of them. So a almost like internal floors where work is done or machines are operating. So that is part of the reason for the clear height addition that we talked about. But I don't want to get to the end of the road here and say and have you all come back and say, well, you didn't tell us about these mezzanines. But mezzanines are very typical where the clear height is not needed, and so there's an interior floor or two inside these buildings is very common, and it's the same thing. We would go back to MIPA for an advisory opinion of whether what we are now proposing is materially different from what was approved.
The other thing too is with MIPA, I'm kind of focused on MIPA, I guess, because now you have a proposed building. Would these things be presented to MIPA because of the proposed parking and all that, and the number of people and so forth? And I could add to what Savory says. I live in North Carver, and I'm plagued by all what he said, and those people from Plimpton, 3 o'clock must be the magic number, because you can't go anywhere. You're coming from Plimpton, you try to go to Middleborough, Wareham, it's just like, oh my God, what is going on? Obviously, it's shift change, but you have multiple shifts. So I was kind of concerned about MIPA, because now it's more widely known, or more focused on people and so forth and so on, for our traffic and so forth. So I'm really concerned about that. The other thing too is we were always talking about a 5 megawatt system, and because this looks different and it's big, and are we beyond 5 megawatt system?
We don't think so. One of the things that actually drives that, and Savory had asked, is there going to be any fueling systems, which we don't anticipate right now, but what they do have a lot of is just vehicular charging stations, which eat up a bunch of power. We don't think that will go above the 5 megawatts, but we're figuring that part out still, and we're engaged with Eversource to start talking about what needs to happen to support the project. But we don't think it's going to be over 5.
And I guess the last part is the towers, the water.
Yeah.
So that the people here have the correct amount of water. And I'm sure the chief will talk about fire suppression, which would be another different kind of system. But I was looking at the water tower. Is that through MEPA also, where they would look at that?
We'd look at that during the site plan review process with the town. MEPA typically doesn't get that into just site plan issues, but certainly we deal with that. And, you know, as Gary said, I mean, this will be safe. This will be done right into the regulations, and we'll come in and say, this is what the tower needs to, you know, physically be, and then we can work on, you know, what's that look like, you know, because that will be important as well. But that's a fundamental, you know, we got to have the right fire suppression. We look forward to working with the water district and the fire department and chief on making sure that's all right.
Well, I and all the committee, I'm sure, we're looking forward to
Yeah.
working directly with you.
Great, thank you.
And if we, with context through Sharon, obviously, and she'll communicate with us as well, to see your faces often, not infrequent, if you will. And if we have any questions and they pop up, that consider them to be important. And we appreciate you're all here tonight.
Great, thank you.
Pat, do you have any, you good?
I really don't have anything else. I'd like to thank you for a nice comprehensive presentation. Some good information and very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate your time and attention. And just the engagement. We're, some people are more friendly than others, so we just put it that way. So we appreciate it.
Paul, do you have anything?
Thank you. Now I have to talk after you said everyone was friendly, so tone it down, I guess. No, seriously, I think the plan looks great, and I appreciate, as somebody who's newer to the committee, being able to see visually what's going on. You know, at my first meeting, Bob came in and had done a presentation, and unfortunately where I was sitting, I wasn't quite able to see what was going on. So this is great for me to not just see it on the website and see it in real life. And I think other residents of the town would feel the same way. When I think about questions that come up from people I've spoken with and just things I think about myself, I heard earlier the comment that there's no user in mind yet, but I think one thing that's important is if we're going to get down to this, we don't want a structure to go up that sits. So what's the likely guarantee and what's the usual timeline for making sure that there is a tenant before we get too far into it?
So, great question. We're not interested in building an empty building, trust me.
Fair.
We go out of business, or we get in a lot of trouble for doing that. And so, there's two kinds of projects in our business. So there's more than that, but the two main ones are, number one would be a build to suit.
Mm-hmm.
So in a case where we would, like I said, we don't have a tenant today, but we could have a tenant that could come along and say, build this for us. And off we go, and you would know very clearly the building. It would be like a custom home. It would be exactly what the tenant's looking for. There's other piece of the business called a speculative project, and And then we try to build a speculative project with a very high degree of confidence that it will lease. And that when we do that, we say, here's the competing buildings in the region. Okay, we know that there's a handful of competing buildings. Hopefully there's no competing buildings, and then it's much easier to make the decision to move forward on a speculative basis. But this one, quite frankly, could be either one. I use an example, and I'm sure you have this kind of development in town, like a shopping center. So you have a shopping center that has a anchor grocery store in it, and then it has some strip spaces, and it's a build it and they will come, and the builder is confident enough when they build the grocery anchor that they'll be able to lease up the smaller spaces. So when you build speculative, you honestly do not know what's coming, but we would have, if we were to move forward on a speculative basis here, the planning board process and the town approvals would define what could go there. It would be clearly, we'd have guardrails on both sides of what could go there and what couldn't go there. And it's not, we're not trying to be, when we say we're building a speculative project, some people might say we're trying to be deceptive and not spilling the beans about what's going to really happen there. That's not the case. It's just like I said, the analogy of a shopping center. You don't know what every store is going to be in the shopping center when the building's approved, but you know that they have to operate within certain parameters based on the planning board approval that is gained to allow the project to move forward. So if we did move forward on, like I said, a build-to-suit, you would know the name, who it is, how many people, how many cars, how many trucks, would be very clearly defined. If it was moving forward on a speculative basis, we would be operating within very well-defined parameters of what we're allowed to do there. So we would rather have it leased before we start pouring concrete, but we do both types of projects at Hillwood, and both are possible here.
Excellent, thanks. One other thing I thought about too, as I was looking at the picture, we've got two decent-sized buildings here. Is there a possibility that it would be multiple tenants across the two buildings?
Yes, and it's also possible that you have multiple tenants within each building. So these buildings are frequently demised where there's a wall, and so in a 550,000 square foot building, one operator is 200 and the other one's 350. I wouldn't think of these buildings being more than 2, maybe 3 in each building. But it's certainly, if we did move forward on a speculative basis, you could have more than one tenant per building.
Thank you, that's good to know. And the other thing I think about too, last question that I had remaining, we talk a lot about the impact of what's going to happen once it's built and what's going on when we're in an operating phase, but the construction phase is also real and has different impacts. So I think, we don't need to get too deep into it here and now, but one of the things that I've heard from some folks I talk with is, how long does it take to take a project like this from start to finish? What's the real impact of that? I mean, that's got to be loud. There's got to be different concerns relative to what's going on then. And I think people in town, especially those that live close enough to it to hear it and see it and feel the real impact of construction vehicles coming in and out, are probably going to want to be reassured that there's some allowance, if you will, for what does that mean and how can it be mitigated, if at all. Because I got to imagine with a whopper of that size, it's not going to go up in, let's say, a few months. It's going to take a little while to put
It
something
takes
like
about a
that.
year. You've got something here called winter, and so it's hard for us to, and that tends to stretch out the construction duration because we lose some productivity through the winter time. But 12 to 15 months would be a very typical construction sequence. And so when construction is happening, the big equipment, the bulldozers and earth movers and scrapers and excavators and all those types of equipment, they come to the site and stay. They might come there and stay for a month or two to do whatever their part of the deal is. So you don't, those big pieces of equipment are not coming in and out of the site on a daily basis. The operators and the folks that work there are coming in and out every day. And then another big one is concrete. So we use a lot of concrete, and concrete comes in mixers. And so it's very typical for a project of this size to make concrete on site. And we could very well come back to you requesting a batch plant. We're trying to do it the most effective, efficient way and with the least amount of impact. So we might come in and say, we're gonna put a batch plant here, and then when we do a batch plant, you don't have the cycling of those trucks over and over and over coming in and out of the site. You do have the raw materials brought in to operate the batch plant, but it's a preferred impact, it's a preferred process than bringing concrete from off-site onto the site, because it is hundreds and hundreds of cement mixer loads over the course of we call that a pour, a concrete pour. So our goal is to be good neighbors and try to mitigate the impact of whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's during construction or the operation itself. Our goal is not to try to jam a square peg into a round hole here. We want you to be happy with it. There's certain things that are unavoidable. Yeah, there's going to be tractor trailers coming in and out of the site. Everything that we have comes from a tractor trailer. But you would hear people say, oh, there's going to be thousands of tractor trailers. Well, probably not. There's probably going to be hundreds. It's easily exaggerated, but it's in the hundreds, almost for sure, on a daily basis. Not thousands, tens of thousands. I've been accused of tens of thousands a time or two, but it's not. The scale is not like that.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. And it seems just from some of the things that you've all said that you clearly have a good concept of lessons learned from what you've done before over the extensive work you've done. And I think for those of us who are getting into this sort of thing for the first time, and more so even for the residents, it's important to draw on that and explain things in a way that shows what you've seen before and how we're going to maybe avoid some pitfalls here. So I appreciate the experience level.
Thank you. We are more than willing to put you in touch with your peers in other communities where we've done what we do. And hey, I'm not perfect. I'll be the first one to tell you. But by and large, I think we get good marks, and we have folks just like yourself that will speak favorably of what we've done. And it's our goal for you to be in that position a few years from now.
Sharon, I just have one more thing I thought of. Do you have any data from your completed projects on the ancillary jobs that are created outside of your actual physical plant? Restaurants, dry cleaners, convenience stores.
Sure. At some point, we'll do an economic impact study, and there's a multiplier effect of indirect jobs, just like you're referring to. It helps in a small town like Carver. It's a positive impact on almost every small business in town. It really is.
And it brings in new, smaller businesses as well?
Yes.
Okay, I think that kind of information will also be very important as a selling tool.
I look at that little, and I probably should shut up, but I look at that little shopping center that's out there, and I don't know if anybody here is affiliated with that little shopping center, but they're gonna have a lot more customers than they do today. And these projects bring large amounts of cash to town every Friday. It's very, not to mention the tax impact, and you said 70% goes to the schools. Our experience has been that it's impossible to reduce cost of education. It's just impossible. It's just gonna continue to go up. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
You can get rid of fourth grade, I guess, if you wanted to, but I wouldn't recommend that. But this is a way to fund
Kids.
public schools, the town infrastructure,
Yeah.
fire department, police department, without raising taxes. That's what it does.
I will say that I've been in touch several times with the planner over in North Andover, Jean Enright, and she very generously sent me way more documents than I wanted to print off, but I did. And I've kind of started going through those too, just for my own edification, and I might take a drive up there and see that area.
That's a great project. We're very proud of it. Mac has been working on that one
Yeah,
quite
he
some
said he was
time now.
banging. That's because I saw they were.
And so is Nate. Nate was a consultant, working on it as a consultant before he joined the team, and much more complicated than this because we're transforming a 50,
Yeah.
60-year-old Lucent Technologies facility.
Right.
And renovating part of it that will remain. The big part of has
Yeah.
been demolished, and that one will be a 100-foot tall building, so that's not what we're expecting here, but that's what's planned there. And the town was very professional, and they put us through the process. We did have to go to town meeting for some changes, and we were approved, I would say effectively unanimously. It was a very fulfilling evening for me personally.
I read the minutes of the meeting,
Yep,
so.
and, we
I
had
do
to
my
vote on,
diligence, too.
we had to vote on 3 things, I think, and the first time there was 10, 20 people with the nays. Second time, maybe 5, and then the last time, all I could hear in the background was a baby crying, and nobody spoke up against it, so we were very, Nate, you were there that night? We were very gratified to get the confidence of a town like North Andover, and they've performed wonderfully and been very professional from beginning to where we are today.
And do you have a time frame? How long was that? I haven't looked up dates in all the things that she sent me.
When are you gonna open North Andover, Max?
You talking about the approval process? Or?
Yeah, the whole, from the first time you did a meet and greet with North Andover to today.
Started in 18?
We started in 2018, we went to town vote in 20,
Like May of 19.
May of 19.
May of 19?
Worked with the planning board approval process.
Okay.
I think we closed the end of 20. No, maybe November of 20, and it'll open in 23.
Oh, okay.
22, I'm sorry.
Honestly, happy to tour you around that site.
Oh, let's see it. The other thing I want to do before I release the hounds is ask Bob Delholm if we can arrange a site walk. I'd like to set up 2 site walks that'll be published for boards that have never even been out on the sites. I have members of this board that have never been out on the site. And if you could kind of look over, I'd like you there or a representative. And if you could give me 2 Saturdays, possibly in June. You know, like a 9 o'clock start or something. And it would just be a general walkthrough. right?
Absolutely, yes.
Is that okay with the board? Yep.
Sure, we can, on that topic, coordinate
Okay.
offline and directly. And I suppose while I have the floor, just a couple of points just in terms of status. So Route 44 Development is the owner of the site today, and the Hillwood team, through this due diligence process, will decide whether or not they're going to move forward and complete the transaction. And so much of this process is really affording Hillwood the opportunity to understand what those guardrails will look like in terms of what can be done and what can't be done. And once those are more firmly defined, Hillwood will then decide whether or not to move forward and complete the transaction and implement the project that's contemplated. So I just want to be clear about where we are in the status, and that this feasibility work that's being done is going to either lead to a transaction or not. And again, going back to the opening remarks, I think it's really a privilege for Route 44 Development and the town to have a firm like Hillwood interested in a site like this, and not only bring kind of the capabilities and experience that they bring, but also bring the very hands-on approach. It very much differentiated the firm for us as an extension of the town relative to what had always been envisioned over the, again, decades of work. And it's really unique that the firm not only presents this way with the folks that are here, but it really is from the top down. And it's a very flat approach and organization. And there's a lot of consistency from what you're hearing in this room to folks that work for this team, but also for the leadership of the organization. So I really do want to underscore what an opportunity it is for the developer, Route 44 Development, and the town to be engaged with Hillwood. But we are in that transactional process. The second point I just wanted to cover was there was a lot of discussion relative to truck traffic on 58. Tractor trailers coming out of the future facility, whether it's Hillwood, a follow-on end user, or another developer and a follow-on end user, the truck traffic is really clear through the MEPA process, and that those tractor trailers will be exiting the new Montello onto the improved 58 and then onto Route 44. And that trucks will not be going through the center of town. So I just wanted to just mention that for the newer participants in the process.
Thank you. And I think the only other thing that we might bring up is that, and I talked to North Andover about this too, is that we're all elected volunteers, and we might need some consulting help. So we might need it sooner rather than later. So I don't know at what point we should have a meeting and discuss this, or it's things that we're concerned about, that we don't know about.
We would encourage that and be willing to help pay for it. Because we want those people to be beholden to you, but quite candidly, frankly, you're not the experts. You're civil servants doing a great service to the community, but you need somebody to look at our traffic study that knows a lot about traffic studies, or about our fire suppression plan, that's all they do. And so we encourage that. We want you to be able to say that we hired our own experts, they looked at it, and they're in concurrence with what the applicant is suggesting. So we're absolutely on board with that, and we want you to we want you to do your homework, but no offense intended, you're not the experts to be able to read and make a decision off of a traffic study. You need the opinion of an expert.
No offense taken, we all know what we don't know.
That's why I got this guy. I can't do it either, so.
But thank you, but that's a discussion the RDA feels like we would like to have sooner rather than later, so I don't know who I set it up with. Probably.
I think similarly, all discussions, even if intended with Hillwood, should at least initially
Come
flow
through
through
you
the
and-
44 Development as
Okay.
the development partner, just for, not for control, but just for consistency
Exactly.
and efficiency.
Exactly. And thank you, and be in touch. I'm going to see if there's anybody here who'd like to speak or ask some questions of these gentlemen while we have them.
Bob? Bruce?
You had to point your finger at me. All right.
Yeah.
I'm Bruce Mackey. I'm currently the chair of the planning board. And I really don't have any questions. I think initially all the questions I would have asked were asked and answered well. And I just want to thank Hillwood and Route 44 Development for being here and explaining this project. I know there's a lot of excitement and people are interested in town of what's going to happen here. I think as far as planning is concerned, I think a lot of the questions that were asked were pretty much the questions that I would have asked primarily at the very beginnings of a project. But as a planning board member, I look forward to working with you and on this development. Maybe there is one thing. There is, I think that now that I think of it, I know that we just had a meeting with the RDA, and we did have discussions with the planning board, other planning board members, and just don't want to go over this greatly, but there was concern about what we would see at a 65-foot height. So what Mr. Moore went through for us to have some sort of plans to show exactly, or renderings to see what this building would look like from different areas of town is, I think, very important. Also, I know at that meeting there was a lot of concerns about we already have traffic at the intersection of 58 and 44 that builds up in the afternoon. People were very concerned about what this would be like with this new business coming in. So that's something that has to be addressed, and it would be nice to know if we're going to have additional lights or how this is going to be controlled out there. I think people would want to know. I know it is difficult, for the traffic, especially if you're coming west and you'll be heading towards this business. You got to cross 2 lanes of the highway. I mean, it's difficult for a car. I was just wondering how that's going to work out when you're bringing trucks in that have to go slowly across the road when they initially go from 0 to crossing the road. So that's kind of important. Also, any noise generated, I know the neighbors are going to be sensitive about, especially if you're going to operate 24 hours, what kind of noise is going to be coming from this facility, especially in the evenings when people are normally in bed and sleeping. I mean, that'll be another question that people will be asking. Then I suppose one of the questions that will be asked initially too, it would be, has any other means of access off of Route 44 to the site? Why was access from Montello and using that interchange there? That might be a question that would come up, something that would have to be answered, especially during town meeting. like Savory said, during town meeting, sometimes questions go all over the place, and it's good to have those answers ready.
Thank you, Bruce. We look forward to meeting with you and the board, and we do have a lot of information on those questions currently, just from the past traffic studies that have been done. There is a robust improvement plan for Route 58 and 44 that we'll get into. We still need to talk with MEPA about exactly how we're going to do that, and DOT, but I would expect, we'd like to be in front of your board informally presenting those things to you and talking through how that works, and giving you some more specificity on that. But it's a good plan, and we'll have the right traffic engineers and folks to talk about that. And I think that's what we'd like to do, is even informally, we might not have all the answers, but there's already been a very thorough analysis on this development or something just like it. So we've got a lot of the answers to those questions, and then we will formally make those applications at some point, but we're way ahead on a lot of those issues right now. So we can have some very productive, informal meetings that, as I said earlier, it will make it so that when we get there, we're already nodding once we get to the formal process, and there's not as much question about what we're doing. We're more confirming what we've already kicked around, I think.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to address Hillwood or Route 44? Thank you.
Great. Thanks again. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Appreciate it
coming.
very much.
Can I ask one question real quick?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
I may have missed the answer, but, although it's gonna take some time to kind of finalize what we think the best plan might be, it won't be long at all. I mean, we're probably in a position where we can start sitting down and having conversations with the fire chief, conservation commission, any other boards we need to deal with, and we could start doing that literally tomorrow. And so is there a formal process you want us to follow, through you guys to be able to start some of that dialogue with your other boards and consultants and whoever else?
I'll discuss it with the board, but I don't see any reason why you can't start your initial discussions.
Well, I think, Jim, you would probably be responsible
Yeah.
for letting Route 44, Hillwood, know which commissions they would have to meet with, and who the either chair of those commissions are, or if there's an agent in the town, whether it's the building inspector or it's the conservation agent, to set up those meetings. But I think that our town planner is probably the first step, because he's going to know everyone that you need to speak to. And that would be the step to go to there. And then you just either ask Jim to have you put on an agenda, or you speak directly to the person in charge to make that happen.
We also have, for a lot of our projects, a technical review committee that are made up of town staff, and then we have an engineering consultant that works on behalf of the planning board. And I know the RDA wants to select its own consultant, but that's another opportunity to meet with town staff to kind of ask questions and get responses and feedback on proposals.
I think your question, no more, is for the informal sessions, right? Just to
Right.
get a beat on it?
Yeah, I think it's really all of the above, and thanks, Mac. That's what I wanted to talk about. We'd love to have that technical review committee meeting, and as we come out of that, then set up some informal meetings with the various boards. And I mean, we could just speak with you directly about when we could pull that together, but I think we're ready to do that.
Yeah,
Now.
there's certainly no reason to wait on a meeting of the RDA for permission
Oh,
or
yeah.
anything like that.
Right.
We've set up, or I asked the board about a rather robust meeting schedule, and if we all agree those dates are good, then I'll get them to Jim and Bob too, and they can disperse them to you as well. But as far as your informal meetings, I fully expect you to be moving ahead in your own due diligence and answering questions that our boards have. And what I will ask is that the RDA is copied or made notice of even the informal meetings, in the event one of our members would like to attend.
Great, great.
Because I think we want to keep our hand in on even as things progress internally.
Excellent, and I'd expect we'd reach out to Jim and get that technical review committee meeting directly, and then start, lining up
Yep.
meetings with the planning board and the water district, and
Yep.
even the conservation commission to just come in, and just need to, we could certainly come in and have a conversation like this. We want to pull together a little bit more information though too, but it'll be soon.
And I'm sure they'll all ask you the $100
Absolutely.
million question.
we look forward
What's
to
going to go there?
Yeah,
So if there's something that they can work with, it's something we can all work with.
great.
Just to expand on that, so that I'm clear, I want to make sure that I follow the right protocol. So, if for instance, the team wants to meet with the water district commissioner, I would send an email then to Jim, making
Yep.
that request to set up that informal meeting. Similarly, we're eager to sit with the fire chief as well. Would that?
I would say that you could email the chief and copy Jim on,
Okay.
so that Jim is aware and he stays on the thread. But certainly we don't need one more email middleman.
Okay.
So if you know of somebody in particular that you feel you want to have an informal meeting with, you can find that person if you don't know their contact information, and make sure that Jim knows too.
Yep.
Or ask Jim and he'll get you there.
We'll coordinate well.
Yep.
There's a really healthy line of communication.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah,
really
but
well to date. But
you
that's
know,
helpful to know.
It goes through Jim, who lets us know, but there's no reason to come ask permission from anybody. Just go where you need to go.
Yeah, my suggestion to see Jim was if you didn't know who to go to.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you know the party that you need to speak to, I don't see, as long as Jim is copied on it, and
Yep.
Right.
then you can make the outreach yourself
Okay.
directly to them.
Thank you.
Oh, the chief is,
Through you, Sharon and the board, just on that question that was answered, certainly we will sit down with you. The only caution I have is we kind of have to solve the height issue first, and just because that's going to, for us to answer a lot of the questions, I just don't want to get too far ahead of already making presumptions that, where fire department's giving you information on a building that's in theory might happen before we get by one of the major questions is how we're going to deal with the height. So all I'm saying is we need to counteract them together, and there might be different meetings involved, but we've got to solve that. And obviously that's a lot of work to get the right language in place so that we can support the project at a time, and that's what we want to do.
So that would be approaching it as if there was a height change and was not a height change.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a gray area. I don't want
Yeah.
to say, okay, we want to do this, we need that, and it's acting like we're in the direction that we haven't agreed upon yet.
Mhm.
It's abstaining. So, just to be transparent, we have to kind of solve them both at the same time. We're certainly willing to, when you sit down with us and the other boards, I think it's going to be more kind of general questions. Hey, well, how does this layout look? What are you thinking here, and so forth. And the other thing I would ask when it starts to get technical, as was asked through the RDA, we are probably going to be looking for some help from some professional consultants of our own. I know that you were familiar with that in other projects, and talked to the North Andover Fire Chief at great length. Having a fire protection engineer represent their needs and stuff. So I'm not saying we have to do that right now, but I know enough of these projects how you want to go to work and you don't want to do this 3 times. So eventually it's going to get technical, and we are going to need that assistance to do that sooner than later. Is what I'm saying. So we might need to trigger that mechanism. Certainly we're going to sit with you in the beginning and give you some thoughts. We'll do that as many times as you ask, but we can only go so far. And the file we're going to kind of shut down and say, hey, we need to regroup here, clear a little bit. So just ask that happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Does anyone want to take a 5-minute break, or?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, we could. I could use one. I could use one.
We'll stand in recess for 5 minutes. Hey, Rich, we're back on. Moving on, the next is the update on the 94th Street property, and we've had some minor developments. We're trying to track down the original deed and the original MOU. We have a working copy of the MOU, and we have a signed copy that's not dated of the MOU for 94th Street that was from July of 2015. We do have the town meeting minutes of April of 2015, Article 36. The property was handed over from the treasurer tax collector to the Board of Selectmen for disposal. And then we have the select board meeting minutes of August of 2015 that says the property was turned over to the RDA by Jack Hunter, or Jack Hunter representing the RDA. But what we need is the deed and the MOU. The deed will give us authority to sign the PNS. So is that where we are with this, Tim?
Right, so I think we sent the draft documents that we had, plus the minutes, to Attorney Klein, Katie Klein from Western O'Neill, and so she's looking at that, and we requested a copy of a deed to transfer from the Board of Selectmen to the RDA, and then a future deed to transfer from RDA to Mr. Williams.
Right.
She's a KP Law. He said fussing
She's
on
with
the
KP.
old
I'm
mistake.
sorry, yep, getting my consultants mixed up.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Finally get rid of that property.
Yeah, so we have an extension of the PNS until June 30th. So if that can be expedited, at least we would have the authority to sign the PNS, and then we can move to closing with Mr. Williams.
So, then Mr. Williams did call me the other day. He asked if we could, he wanted to expedite the signing of the offer to purchase. He has some, I guess, contracts, engineering things that he wants to get moving on, but he wants to have kind of a
He
commitment.
wants to have possession of the property in some form.
Or at least, yeah,
Yeah.
in terms of a accepted offer.
I
I don't know what the,
can't expedite, the RDA
Right.
cannot sign it until we have the authority to sign it.
which is true, so we can't do anything until we have that
Nope.
deed problem solved. All right, so I can get back to him.
So if
I don't know.
Ms. Klein can get it together by next week, or so, then drop the PNS, then I'll be happy to swing by and sign it.
Okay, so RDA, no authority yet. All right, I'll give him a call and kind of explain that to him so he understands that the votes were taken, but the paperwork was not
We lost the deed.
dotted and crossed.
The former chairman, Mr. Sinclair, remembers seeing it. He believes he remembers signing the MOU. But we've had, you're our fourth planner since the passing of the property to the RDA. So there's a good chance it's in a file somewhere. It wasn't executed, it wasn't, and we only have the draft copy of the MOU. But at least we're not reinventing the wheel. But I'll talk to you probably tomorrow morning about that, okay? Bills payable, anything? No.
So in the packet, we do have an invoice for meeting minutes from Tiffany Sadek for $75.
Tiffany?
How much?
75?
25?
75.
Yeah, you could, the checkbook's here, and both myself and Savory made it a point, we signed multiple checks.
Okay.
Last time, because of my situation and so forth, Deb offered if we signed the checks,
Mhm.
you went to her with that invoice, it's not really an invoice, it's something that we just normally do. She could make it out and she could send it out.
Okay,
So if you could take that, that would be great.
Sure,
And
okay.
I got the book right here, Jim.
All right, so it's okay with the board to go ahead and
Yes,
say that?
yes.
All right, just want to make sure we got that.
What's this relocation bill?
Excuse me?
So that was, so when we were, give a little explanation. So when we were in the
That's
so, no, there's not appraisal. So when we were in the process of potentially taking the property, the redevelopment authority is looking to possibly take the Wasowski property.
Borofsky.
Borofsky property. So we had to hire a relocation consultant.
That's right.
And, you know, in preparation of doing a taking. And so, so we had reached out with them, we signed a contract, and, you know, they did some initial work to prepare for doing that work. Then COVID hit, and then, you know, eventually Mr. McLaughlin was able to work out a deal with Mr. Borofsky without doing a taking. But at that point, we had, you know, contacted DHCD, notified them that we're, you know, in the process of doing a taking. So we had to provide them with a relocation consultant. And so this relocation consultant had to do some work as a baseline to prepare for that.
Oh. First we hear about that. Okay, we have to transfer some money.
Okay, well, I mean, this is the first bill we're seeing of this. It's dated 4/21. Do we know how long it's been?
This is the only one we did, though.
Right, this is
Yeah.
this is the
Yeah, I
one and
remember
only
this.
bill
Okay,
for this particular
okay.
consultant, and then
We
there's,
need to transfer.
I could transfer.
Okay, we'll deal with it.
I just need your permission. We need to put some money from the URP. It's 7,000 in the URP.
Okay.
And we just have to transfer it.
So how much do we need to cover this bill?
Yeah, it's 2,800. I think we need about, we should probably put in, maybe, if we're gonna get any more bills?
no, this is the one and only bill.
Okay.
Do you want to transfer 3,000, enough to cover it?
Yeah, at least, hold on. There's $7,557.85 in URP. And so, we only have 315 in our regular, so I could pay it off of, the checking side, but, you've gotta cover that. And we have to cover, what do we have for secretarial? How much more secretarial do we have?
Tonight, it's,
100?
oh, what's in secretarial?
Well, we have 315, I would have to
Okay,
transfer out of our own savings account to cover that amount.
No, I think that's okay for now, but we need to vote on transferring out of the URP.
At least 3,000. It's 2,800.
Yeah,
How much is in there now?
75.
$7,557.85.
Okay.
Well, you want to just cover enough to cover that? I don't care. We can just transfer, just sweep that into the checking side, just enough to cover the bill, if you want.
I was thinking going the other way, putting more in, just in
From
case.
URP?
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
I was thinking 4,500,
45?
yeah.
Okay,
That way it's there.
okay.
All right,
Yeah.
so I'll make a motion that we transfer $4,500 from the URP fund to the checking in order to pay outstanding invoices.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 So I need to add, at some point, we're gonna have to take and build the checking account up for the secretarial payoff here.
Okay,
And so right now, we only have 315, so once I take the next pay, $75, I think it is, and so that's gonna bring that down under 200.
Yeah.
Maybe we should throw some more.
Yeah,
in there.
you should probably go ahead and transfer
So
that.
Savory, give me a number.
what do you want? I'll give you what you want.
Give me a number. I don't know, 1,000?
All right, I'll make a motion that we transfer $1,000 into the secretarial fund.
Thank
Is there
you.
a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
I apologize, who seconded? Thank you.
That takes care of bills payable. At this point, since I have not reviewed the minutes, I'd like to table the minutes of April 6th and the executive session, minutes of the 6th, the minutes of April 20, and the minutes of April 28th. The minutes of May 11th were the joint meeting, and I've read through those, and those are.
If you may, one question I have for you. In order for the new treasurer to take place, he needs to create more paperwork at the bank, and he has to provide the minutes of that meeting we had that for election.
Oh, the reorg? Okay,
the
so those are the 28th. So is there a motion to table the minutes of April 6th and the executive session minutes of April 6th?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of April 28th?
Approve or?
Approve them. Did everyone read them?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I did, okay.
Okay.
Is that the right ones that have the
Yeah.
election on it?
I'm not sure that we reorganized correctly.
We
I
didn't do it right.
I don't think, I'm not sure.
We don't have
I
a
think-
secretary?
No, I think what happened was that Sharon turned it over to me to vote on the chair. I think it should have gone to Jim as the executive director.
I thought it went to Jim. Oh, it didn't
I
go
think
to
it should have gone to the executive
Is-
director.
Is that what the minutes say?
No, I definitely turned it over to the vice chair because that's how we used to do it.
Yeah.
I
Last
don't
time
know,
I
do you
had
know
done
the
it.
answer to that?
I think it was turned over to the vice chair.
All right, if everyone's
No,
fine
At the
with
planning
that.
board meeting, it was turned over to me for the chairman vote, but
And last night on Concom, it was turned over to Brooke
to Brooke.
as the conservation agent.
Yeah, I think it was
So-
turned over to the vice
I
chair.
think we did it right.
I think we, I
What
don't
do-
think
What do
we
our
did it
minutes
wrong.
say?
You don't think we did it wrong?
No.
Okay,
Do our minutes reflect what we did?
all right.
No, I know what we did.
I know, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the minutes say what we did. I was just curious as to whether it was okay or not.
No, we did,
All right,
okay.
then I'll make
So
a
is there a motion to accept?
I'll make a
minutes?
motion that we approve the minutes of April 28th as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those are approved. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 11th? I know Joanna has,
I had some issues with that.
yep, and those were generated by the planning board recorder, and it reflects only the RDA section of the minutes. At the time, I called the meeting to order and adjourned our meeting. Is there a motion to approve those for discussion?
So moved.
Thank you. Now go.
Huh?
You had some
Well,
changes. you
on the minutes, I just wanted to make sure that when you met with the planning board, I was absent. I wanted that to be
Right.
recorded.
So she wanted, so the changes would be on that absent,
It would
Under
say
members
Joanna Layton,
absent would be
RDA
Joanna
member or
Layton.
whatever.
yep.
It's there, it just needs to be plugged in.
On these minutes, on page 1, under the 7 o'clock PM joint meeting with the RDA, the 6th line down, it says the maximum building height is 45 feet.
I did say 45.
Okay, so the minutes are correct in what
The
you said.
minutes were correct. I
but-
did say, and then
All right,
somewhere, it should say somewhere else that Jim corrected it.
Yeah, further down it gets
Because I
correct.
think you brought it up.
okay.
Jim Walsh did.
Yeah, but I think Savory pointed it out.
Yeah, I thought so, yeah, because, it says 45 on the top of page
Yep.
2, and then halfway down it goes to 40 feet. Okay. But that's what the minutes were, so, okay. So you want your name in there as being absent?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it says members absent, I
Yeah.
want to have Joanna Layton,
Okay,
parenthesis, RDA member.
all right. So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the joint meeting with the RDA from May 11th, 2021, as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 And then question, so do you want the executive session minutes posted yet?
No, we tabled them, we haven't approved them
Oh,
yet.
you haven't, okay. So you tabled,
Tabled those,
but the April 6th regular,
and the April
And-
6th regular.
And the April
oh, both
6th.
got tabled?
Both got
Okay,
tabled.
all
We
right,
only
just wanna
voted on the
make sure.
28th and the 11th.
I just want to take,
And then you'll need a certified stamped copy from the town clerk's office of the minutes.
I'll see what I need. I'm
Okay.
going over to the bank tomorrow. I'll see exactly what they want. I know they want a copy of the minutes.
Okay,
I don't know.
Yeah, that's really all that they wanted, was a copy, that's what I
it
did.
doesn't have to be
When
certified.
all of us have to be, we all have to,
April 28th
he's gonna
approved,
sign.
right?
How about you, Paul? Are you available to, sign a copy so you can sign checks?
Yeah, when would I have to do it?
Yeah, let's see, today is
What did he say?
5/20.
When would I have to go over?
You have to go to the Rockland Trust.
Just any time?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, no, we can do it easier than that. He can get the paperwork.
Mhm.
She can initially put on, whom. He's gonna have to provide her the reorg, okay? And then she can provide that
Approved.
paperwork to come back. Each one will be different. And Sharon has to sign her
Amended.
name because they didn't know her address. Remember that one, Sharon? They said they had you 5 times in the
Joanna
bank,
Layton.
but your address was wrong or some foolish
Yes,
thing. But anyway.
this is no other
Each one
changes,
of
right?
us
But-
will have a piece of paper to sign, and then we'll ask Pat to take it all
I'm
back.
gonna start the ball rolling.
Right, had to do the 40 feet,
But we,
got changed.
right now,
Okay.
we have Sharon, myself, and Savory. We're okay until we can get all that going.
Yeah.
It's always good to have the new people sign,
100%.
but that only invokes us again, but that's okay.
Got it. Sounds
So
good.
Pat, if you can just, when you get that paperwork, individually, have her put on the top of each one of those, so we can, it'll say Sharon Clark, and the other paper will Joanna Layton, and so forth, so
Yeah.
she puts it out there and gives you the paperwork, and then you can bring it back to us, and we'll have more, we're having meetings pretty soon anyway, we
Yeah.
don't have to wait
It's
too
gonna- It's
long.
gonna take a little while. Yeah.
Yeah, we can get it done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
You wanna know how much is in the,
Yeah, as long as you have it in front of you.
you have the treasurer's report? Okay, here we go.
For purposes of these minutes, Joanna, are you the treasurer?
No.
Okay.
I'm acting. I'm filling in because legally we don't have the proper paperwork
Gotcha,
on.
okay.
Okay? Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, the treasurer's report, April 2021. The checking account, as of April 30th, has $315.59. The savings account has $29,322.67. And the urban renewal plan is $7,557.85. Let me go back to the savings account. Just the year-to-date interest is, can't go too far with 96 cents, but that's what we got. And in the urban renewal plan, the interest so far is 24 cents. That really is the treasurer's report.
Thank you, Joanna.
Spend it all in one place, right?
I know it.
Are there any comments about what we saw tonight?
Do we have to vote on the treasury report?
Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
accept it.
I'll
the
make a
vote.
motion that we approve the treasury report for
April
April
30th.
April 30th.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now, is there anybody comments want to be made about what we saw tonight, where we go from here?
Oh, can I just say one thing?
So,
That guy,
oh,
which one of those, when I was talking to Bob Delholm, he came, and, actually, it was Bob Delholm that told me this. Joanna, you're losing it. That when we want to do a site visit to, say, Andover or wherever they are, that they will go through him and they will contact whomever that person is, and they will take us,
Nice.
because we're gonna get the royal treatment. Don't drive up by yourself, okay? And I said to them, no problem, how about dinner? I go, "No." But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you, Sharon.
I think we will be touring some of their sites. The one in North Andover, like I say, I've been plowing through their documents and talking to the town planner up there. And I know the chief has been talking to the fire chief up there, because they're working with Hillwood right now. This was a project that was brought by them to the town to redo the old Lucent factory, and just happened to make it a very big building. But it is over 100 feet, it's 105.
That's big, that's big.
And they did that with a zoning bylaw change, I believe. But all of that, you know, the idea that we'll be getting professional help either through, you know, Beals and Thomas or Fuss and O'Neill or somebody else that we don't know yet. I think it's important that, you know, we know and that the town knows that we are doing this with as much assistance as we need. And our goal is that it will not cost the town anything, because the fire chief doesn't have it in his budget to hire his own consultant on a building that we don't have, kind of thing. So we won't be operating in the dark, and we will get absolutely all the independent information that we need. Is there anything else from anyone?
Yeah, what's the story with the recording secretary? Seeing how I blabbed.
We have resumes and we'll be talking. I have set out I have the you know, proposed meeting schedule, which I gave all of you tonight. Once I've got that locked down, that'll be easier, because I do expect these meetings to be, you know, we're already over 2 hours, and that didn't used to be the case.
Yeah.
So it's a time commitment, especially through the summer, so I will have that locked down soon.
Okay.
And we appreciate Sue coming out of retirement tonight to help us out.
Susan, oh, are you staying? Maybe she's gonna stay.
Well, she can stay.
Hello?
That was an evil laugh.
Hey, it'll be rent-free.
I worked with her before.
I know, so haven't I.
Our next move from here is, I'd like to hear back on the meeting schedule. I know I might have put some run-ins for vacations. The important thing is that as long as we have a quorum, we will meet.
Okay.
Bob will give me 2 possible dates in June for site walkthroughs for those who are unfamiliar and for those who need another walkthrough. That will be invited to all the other boards and towns, and I'll make sure that they put it out on the website as anybody who's interested. And I should have those dates in the next day or 2, at least by Monday. I'll
Oh,
disseminate
the
those.
other thing, so this is just my idea, but I also told this Bob Delholm already, that I wanted I wanted to create a PSA through Area 58, us viewing, so they could see what the inside of one of these 40-foot buildings look like, and this automation that's doing all this stuff and so forth. Sponsored by us, just to give these people an education, working with Mr. Goulart over there to put a PSA together. And he said he has a lot of information. He could show us actual videos and we could just reproduce or whatever. But I think that's something we could do for education.
And actually, Jim Walsh had a good suggestion when I saw him earlier this week, is that to present a timeline of this property.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of us know how far back it goes and what has been, what it was, and to present an accurate depiction of a timeline of, say, the last 40 years of what it was and how it got to be.
That's
and
perfect. We could start with that. Oh, I love it. Camera, action.
Jim Walsh got that. We'll make him star in it. We'll do a PowerPoint.
I think too, though, it's important, like one of the things they're talking about, they've clearly thought about is everyone keeps worrying about, the traffic on 58, and I get it, but they've clearly already thought about how to improve that section of 58, and if they're already there, those are the things we want to get out now, because to Sabri's point from the meeting before, there's a lot of, let's call it conjecture as to what's going to happen. People think they know how this is going to go, but at the end of the day, we want people to be comfortable, or as comfortable as they can be, and things like that are going to help.
Social media will kill you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, don't participate.
I just have a question. What is the process for public hearings on this project? Is it just planning? Or any, like conservation would have a public hearing, but,
So if there were, well, there are wetlands on that property, so
yeah.
I'm gonna assume there's gonna be public
Yeah,
hearings for
I'm
that.
just trying to think of a way to circumvent all the questions being asked at town meeting. Is there a preliminary way to get, people who have a lot of questions to come and ask them and get that information out into the world so that you don't have people going off the top of their head at town meeting with things that they
Right.
think about that
So have like
goes
a
on and on.
FAQ page on the website or something, or even have a project website.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking about that, because working with Serped on the Complete Streets, they have like a whole little webpage set up. So that people have questions or any documents, they can go to the project webpage and, be able to access the document so that,
Maybe that's a question for Bob if they've done that somewhere else.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So can I interject? When we wanted the water to come in, for those of you who have, I don't know how long you've been in Carver, but I've been here a long time. Jack Hunter, the then planner, and Will St. Clair, the talker, because that's why he was on the Water Commission, he was on the Water Works potential, and the two of those guys created these hearings that came in, open. They filled the room. I was there all the time, but they filled the room for what you said. People wanted to know, and they got the word out. We didn't even have social media then. I don't know how they got the word out, but they got it out.
In here, there's a list of the dates, of the dozen or so dates that there were public hearings.
There you go. But this really wasn't a public hearing, it was just general.
It was just a general.
General thing, come listen, we're gonna tell you. Ask all your questions, we're gonna tell you. This is an education one. And it really worked because we got water. The water thing, they approved it.
Well, I mean, any public hearing that's been held up to now before this is relatively useless.
Right.
Because there were no questions answered.
Right.
This is a great start.
Yep.
And I think that some of the things that were brought up tonight will get even more information, but.
so it could be, you can call them public information forums, which are different than a public hearing.
Yeah.
'Cause
That's
sometimes
what I'm talking, public forum.
You get to a public hearing
That- yeah.
process and it's so formal that, sometimes you
Then that's what I'm talking about, just some way to get,
get the information out to people.
right,
And then maybe there's a FAQ page that could be on our website.
Yeah.
maybe,
right.
Yeah.
sponsored
And
by
the ability to add your own question,
Yep.
that someone would be
Get the
responsible
Carver
for.
reporter to, put, this preliminary forum that we're gonna have. The RDA is gonna have this forum, come on up and listen and ask, and you invite whomever.
Yeah.
And let the questions come out. It's us doing it.
Yeah, I would think we would be the host, and I think
Yeah,
it would
I
be
agree.
towards the end of the summer when we have more answers for
Yeah.
whatever questions,
Right.
hopefully.
When are we going to find out the date for the special town meeting, if it is inclusive of
That's a
more than
good
just
question.
this bylaw?
So asked a question and didn't really get an answer. I shared it with Sharon.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I asked that question directly through email and didn't really get a straightforward response on that.
Okay.
And I think at some point we'll know. But did you get the email I sent you with the zoning Form 7 from the
Yes.
Attorney General's office? So we have a form that will help kind of pick a date and you work backwards from it, so you make sure you hit all the appropriate dates, for advertising.
Right.
the public hearing and publishing the notice. And it's different than a normal meeting notification, because you have to have it, you know, posted so many days ahead of time.
Okay.
But it kind of lays out all the steps that have to be done, so, you know, I mean, we can kind of play it out and say, okay, well, what would be the earliest town meeting, be maybe some date in October.
Okay.
And then just kind of work back a schedule, so we say, okay, by this date, we need to have something put together to meet the advertising requirements in the paper, and then figure out if it needs any notification to abutters.
Right.
I may need to, we'll have to take a look at, see if it requires abutter notifications.
All right.
What else would be?
Okay, because I know there were 3 or 4 things that the planning board put off at the second night of town meeting.
Mhm.
There were, you know, the marijuana thing, the solar, there were a couple that were put off.
Right, so the, so the solar was put off, the townhouse definition was put off.
The marijuana.
Future study. I thought marijuana was voted down, but I might be wrong.
That was down, that was voted down.
Yeah, I think that was voted down.
The
Oh, okay,
postponement,
right, because it was all
And
inclusive.
what about the TDRs? Will that bylaw be?
that's a
coming up?
postponement.
So, well, with the,
But
well,
for the
that
fall.
wasn't considered at this meeting, but we have a final meeting in June to, and then at that meeting, you know, the question is, okay, do you want to try for a spring, fall town meeting, or do you
Oh,
want to
okay.
shoot for a spring town
So
meeting?
that's not yet been determined, whether.
It hasn't
the
been,
TDRs
no.
Okay.
So we have to have that conversation.
Something else was shot down too on the planning board, what was it? There was 2 things that were shot down. Well, the water pot passed, the people that wanted to be protected.
Yeah.
That passed.
That was different than planning. That was.
Yeah. Did everything on your side pass? Say?
No, I got to do it again.
Well, make sure it's fall.
Well, I can do it in the fall. We're gonna split it up. and have-
Create a need, if you will.
Well, I can do that. I mean, we're gonna take what was there and we're gonna split it into individual votes.
Okay.
Right. And there might be some financial articles that would have to be dealt with in the fall, but
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know about.
But you're pretty confident we're gonna have one in the fall?
I think,
Well, we can call one, right?
You'll have.
We can,
We have to pay for it.
yeah.
oh,
But
okay,
you,
so you can petition it,
We can ask.
right, but also you really want more articles
Yeah,
on it in order to get a
Costs money
quorum.
To make a town meeting.
You need 75 people for a
Right.
quorum. And
At least.
so you need more articles to bring in a different group of people, different range of people. Okay.
At this point, I have the next meeting slated as June 3rd, Thursday, June 3rd. Does anyone want to quickly check?
June 3rd.
My calendar's home.
I told the chair I won't be
Oh,
available.
we're gonna go to a Thursday now?
It is Thursday.
Huh?
Today's Thursday.
Today's
Well, we usually meet on a second Tuesday of the month, and
Well-
I'm looking at that and it's in my mind.
Well, the Tuesday date was to accommodate, Mr. Sinclair.
I hear ya, I hear ya,
and
that's
the
fine.
others who had to,
Yep.
they were kind of piggybacking.
Yeah,
I think we need our own meeting time.
okay,
If
This
you
is-
want to continue to meet in this room,
yeah,
then we have to pick a day that is most likely not taken, and those are Thursdays.
so
These are all
that's fine, I don't have
Okay.
a problem with that, no.
Okay,
That works.
I know
would-
that,
I got a conflict on that night, but
you do?
for maybe an hour.
Okay. And is there a start time, 5:30, 6 o'clock, is there anything? Is there,
Six.
is there a difference?
6 makes a difference for me.
Okay.
When it was 1 a month, it's kind of easier to
Okay.
sneak out and get here, but if we're going to 2, I gotta
Is
be
there any
honest.
objection to going to 6?
No,
No.
not for me.
Okay.
I don't know, is that okay for you?
6 will work,
Fine.
yeah, I can make 6 o'clock work.
So, all right, so Paul, we wanna have you, which day are we gonna have you?
I can do 2 a month, it's just the half hour makes a big difference to me.
A little tough.
Oh, so
because
6 is good?
6 is good.
All right, hey, I'm retired, it doesn't bother me. I don't,
And then the 24th, I wouldn't be here, but other than
Okay.
that, this looks good.
Okay.
As
Just
we,
like I say, look through.
I will tell you that as we move on and things open up more and more and more, probably like August, September, Thursdays won't work for me at all.
Won't.
So, just to think about that going forward. Maybe one a month, not two.
Well,
You
So
gotta make
that's, is that just August, or is that September too?
That's,
this rest of the summer?
Life,
no, the rest of my life.
forever.
Oh, the rest of your life?
Yeah.
All right, all right, all right.
Busy on Thursdays. Okay, well, I will.
But that's going to be based on how much things open up. It's the work night at the train club I'm a member of.
Oh.
And we haven't been doing it for a year.
Yes.
And,
Well, choo-choo you.
Yeah.
All right, I'll relook at Thursdays, or August and September.
just say September.
Just say September.
Just,
Okay.
September forward.
Okay.
So,
Um,
July is,
No, just go home and check all your schedules.
Yeah, I
I
know,
know.
I'm gonna go
calendar
ahead.
here.
I am gonna set the meeting for Thursday, June 3rd, 6 PM here, and I'll book it tomorrow.
okay.
And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That being unanimous, we are adjourned.
So,
Hang on, I'm gonna do it again.
you're asking us.